Hi, Kathy Coyle reporting from the Becker County History, Science, and Children's Museum. We're going to take a look at the last exhibit in this old building before the new museum is built. Today's date is July 6, 2021. Let's go inside and see what Emily has put together. We are going to see a project that has taken many months for Emily Bierman, the program director here at the Becker County History, Science, and Children's Museum, to put together the last exhibit that the public is going to see in this building.
Yes.
So this is what greets them when they come in the door. Tell us about it.
Yes, this is the title banner. This is the first banner that I made to get the juices flowing on creativity of what we're going to use. And I found my favorite old Detroit map, made that the main picture here, and then kind of went with a tagline. What is this whole thing really about? So we went with celebrating the past, inspiring our future, and then I grabbed a lot of my really favorite old photos and put them on there. Not all of these made the final cut, actually, but they're photos that I knew that I wanted people to see. And so this is just the general overview. Here's what you're going to be seeing as you walk through the museum.
Okay, 150 years of Detroit Lakes. So let's see some other panels, because you have many.
I do.
The society here has had many names. Your banner here tells us about the evolution.
Yes, so in 1882 already, people had only really been here for 10 or 15 years, and they already realized that they needed to start keeping track of the history of all the pioneers and the settlers that were coming in. So they started their Pioneer Settlers Union, and we've got a picture of them at their annual picnic. So that's kind of fun. And then, from then on, they've been collecting history and artifacts and stories, ever since 1882. And so that's why our museum is so packed with things, because these people had the foresight to start collecting early.
Okay, great. Let's see some other panels.
All right.
Emily, tell us about this panel, about the first people, the Anishinabe people.
Yes, so the first inhabitants of where Detroit Lake City is right now were actually the Dakota people and the Lakota. And then after a few hundred years, the Ojibwe Anishinaabe came through and kind of pushed those a little more toward North Dakota and South Dakota. So what we have found out in our research is that Detroit Lake is a direct translation of the original Ojibwe name for the lake, and that's Gayaja Wawangog, and it means a crossing in a sandy place. So if you know anything about little Detroit Lake and big Detroit Lake, you know that there is a sandbar through the middle, and so that's a Gayaja Wawangog.
So it goes way back.
Way back, yep.
So we saw the first people.
Yes.
Now we've got the settlers moving in from Europe.
Yes, yes, and the first one's really from France. This was a fur trading route, so the ox cart trail goes straight through Detroit Lake and meets up, and there's kind of a hub right here around the lake here. So it was a really easy way for the French fur traders to come in and start trading with the natives to get their furs and get whatever they need. So it was a pretty logical spot to build a trading post and then to build a town, which was first called Tylertown or Tylerville, depending on who you ask. And then from then came Detroit.
And the Red River Ox Cart Trail, which we can still see if you're out hiking all the way from St. Paul on up to Winnipeg, Canada. That's a pretty neat area to investigate if you're out walking.
Sure. And you can also, there was a hub from Detroit here that took you out to Pembina, North Dakota. So we had a huge hub of transportation, people doing ox cart trails, and a lot of those early highways just went right over the ox cart trail because the road was cleared. Why not?
They must have been blown away by the beauty of the land and the lakes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we are too. That's why we live here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at some other panels that you put together. Emily, you told me that this is your favorite map.
It is.
And it tells the story about what used to be here years ago.
Right. Well, in spring of 1913. So by 1914, the city is really starting to take shape, and the business district is where the business district is always going to end up being, right on Washington Avenue, the 800 block, the 900 block. And people are building and everything's going great, and then it's August and it's a drought and it's dry and it's hot and it's windy, and something happens at the livery stable. And the livery stable starts on fire, and the livery stable was about where the post office is right now. And then it was a wind coming from the west, and so it burnt every building going southeast, all the way to about where Central Market is now, because that was the lumber yard. So of course the lumber yard went up like that.
Yeah, just like
so 26 buildings burned to the ground, and they're just ash. And we have lots of photos from that day. People heard about it, of course, and they were panicking, and they're trying to pull things out of the wood buildings, and the brick buildings are just fine. But we had a couple of photographers, so we were able to watch that happen all the way to the aftermath in the next few days.
So this date made a huge difference in the history of Detroit Lakes.
Yes, and it definitely changed the landscape of what Washington Avenue looked like. But it looks like that now. 100 and
because they've kept their buildings compared to other cities have had urban renewal.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of my favorites are the women who excelled, and they made history in not just in DL, but the entire state of Minnesota. So let's take a look at them.
All right.
This was a major find when you were doing your research, right?
Yes.
I mean, you spent 6 months doing the research and putting together the panels and the layout of the panels, the whole thing. And this exhibit will be up not just this summer, but also in the fall until the building is demolished.
Yes, and when the new building is built, this will go back up in the new museum with an expansion to the entire Becker County, not just Detroit Lakes.
Okay, well tell us about these two women. They're outstanding.
So Emma and Emma, I've known them for a while. I met them when we did a cemetery walk for Oak Grove Cemetery, one of my first years that I was here. And so I've always known that these ladies have an incredible story, and not a lot of people knew it. So of course I needed to put them on the Healthcare Pioneer panel. And so Emma Ogden was a nurse in the Civil War out east, and she wanted to become a doctor after the Civil War. And of course she was a woman, so she wasn't allowed to. But the generals and the folks in the Army that she worked with while she was a nurse wrote her letters of support. So they finally did let her into medical school, but once she got out, she couldn't find a job because she was a woman and she was single. So she went out west, and the city of Detroit was in desperate need of a doctor.
Which was our name at that point.
That was our name, yep.
Okay.
And so she gets to Detroit on the railroad and shows up and opens a very successful practice. But coming from out east, she already knows that she wants to not use like the old wives' remedies. They work sometimes, they don't always work, and she knows that if she can get a pharmacist up here with chemical medicines, that it would benefit this pioneer town. And so she finds her friend Emma Combacker and gets her to come to Detroit, and they open up a practice together. So Emma Combacker is in the lower level. Dr. Emma is in the upper level, right on Washington Avenue. Dr. Emma is the first female licensed physician in the state of Minnesota. And Emma Combacker is the first female licensed physician in the state of Minnesota, and they are right here in the city of Detroit.
Pharmacist, you mean?
Pharmacist.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, when I looked up, you know, now you can be a doctor of pharmacy.
Yes.
Back
MDSU
then,
has that. Yeah.
Back then, you were not a doctor of pharmacy.
Yeah.
You are a pharmacist.
Well, that is
So-
great, and we could go on and on
I
because
know, I
this
love
is
them.
so fascinating, and we should probably talk about the doctor at the bottom
We
too.
should,
But
absolutely.
these two women are #1 in the state.
Number one. Number
Okay.
one and number one, right here.
From Detroit Lakes. 150 years we've been here. So come out this summer or the fall, and then like you said, it's going to be in the new building a year
Yes.
from now, so the
Yes.
summer of 2022.
Yes, 2022.
Yeah. And
excited.
Emily and the rest of the gang here have all kinds of workshops for young people. I had to make an appointment with her because she is so busy. And so I want you all to check out those workshops too. They're just really, really popular. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you again next week.